Alright guys, so check this out. Got this old bike frame. I bought it a while ago. It's just been sitting in the shed for a number of years now. As you can see, I've just prepped it, trying to give it a respray. The previous owner must have tried to fix some imperfections, tried to cover up some of the paint chips, and just went all over it with a spray can, and it was looking absolutely terrible. There was drips everywhere. So today, hopefully, I'm gonna try and give it a respray, see if we can make it look a little bit better. It's a total DIY project, as you can see. It's in my back garden. I put up this old gazebo that I had, put some sheets on the side, try to prevent some of that wind, some of that rain. I've got it hanging on the roof of this gazebo with a skipping rope. So I've covered up the parts where I don't want any paint to go on. As you can see, I've left the bearings in there. They're old, I'm gonna change them. Put a couple of pennies there. It's the perfect size for that bit where I don't want any paint. So the longest part of this job so far has been sanding off the old paint. All I used was some sanding paper and some old blocks that I had lying around. The only thing I bought so far for this project are the paints I'll be using. I'm going for a gloss black. I'm going to be using a white primer. So let's see how it goes. Alright, so this is how the bike was looking before. As you can see, a total wreck. Paintwork was literally just peeling, flaking, dripping, and just looking absolutely terrible. I can only assume this was due to a total lack of prep before spraying the bike. So I'm going to try and redo this and hopefully make it look a little bit better. And to do this, I'm going to have to sand it down and take off as much of this paint as I possibly can, without actually sanding into the carbon itself. Right now I'm using these sanding blocks. They're around 400 grit and they seem to be working really well. So this is definitely the most time consuming and tedious part of this job. However, if you want even half decent results, you're going to have to spend the time on the prep. I need to get this frame completely smooth and flat. As you can see, I'm feeling with my fingers for any rough patches and I'm sanding it down, getting it completely smooth. I've just left the handlebar and the forks on the frame because this bike's got internal cabling and I really don't fancy rerouting those cables, so I've just left it on. By now I've been sanding for at least 2-3 hours and hopefully I'm almost done. So after this, I gave the bike a good wash and let it dry, and I'm going to be using some alcohol wipes to wipe down the frame to get rid of any grease and any remaining dirt, and I'm going to prepare it for the first coat of primer. So the first coat of primer is going to be quite light. I'm just trying to make sure that I cover the full bike from every angle. It's really important at this point to have a plan and remember where you started and where you need to go. Otherwise you could end up just going around in circles. So after the first coat of primer, I let the bike sit for about 15 minutes. Then I started on the second coat, making sure I cover every part. This coat was a bit more thick, but not too thick that it starts to run. Alright, so managed to get 2 coats out of this can of primer. It's looking alright so far. What I'm going to do now is just let it dry for about 2 hours. So now I'm going to go ahead and sand down some of these rough patches with 1000 grit sandpaper and some warm water. Now the frame is nice and smooth again. I'm just wiping it down with some water and I'm just drying it off with a microfiber cloth. Alright, so I've sanded, washed and dried the frame. And now I'm going to go for the first coat of paint. Once again, the first coat is going to be quite light, just making sure I get every part of this bike from every angle. So I let that sit for 10-15 minutes again, then started on the second coat, again slightly thicker than the first, and trying not to make it drip. Alright guys, so I managed to get 3 coats out of that can, and this is how it's looking right now. Not too bad. Fortunately, right on the last coat, I've got this fly land right on the top tube. But not to worry, I'm going to let this dry for 2 to 3 hours Then I'm going to wet sand it again, and then we're going to prepare it for the final stage, get the decals back on there, and then finish off with a clear coat. So just the same as before, just wet sanding with a 1000 grit sandpaper, just taking off any dust and dirt and the remains of that fly that landed on the frame, just getting the frame nice and smooth again. Managed to get all the paint on, and this is how we're looking. Not too bad. Now the last stage, get some of the decals back on and give it some clear coat, inshallah. So this is probably the most nerve-wracking part, trying to get the decals straight, squeezing out any air bubbles and making sure everything's lined up correctly. I had a few more decals with this kit, but I didn't use them all. I prefer the slightly plainer look. Alright, so I've got my decals on. And now for the final step. And that's to get my clear coat on, inshallah. So this is the lacquer I'm going to be using. I had this bottle at home. So now it's very important to wipe off any fingerprints or any grease that may be on the frame before we use the clear coat. So I managed to get 2 coats of the clear coat, a lighter one, slightly thicker one, and then the bottle ran out. But I wasn't too pleased with the results. It was looking a bit dull, so I went and grabbed another bottle of clear coat and finished it off. Hi guys, so check this out. This is the final result. This is how we're looking. Not perfect, but not bad at all. For a DIY job in the back garden with spray cans, I'm not complaining. So the bike's now looking like a completely different bike. It's looking brand new. I'm really pleased with the results, considering I've done this job outside. Alhamdulillah. Alright guys, so don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And stay tuned, because I need to get this beast back on road, inshallah.